Okay. So at this point, I'd like to introduce our project spotlight involving community planning. Professor Rick Kos and Jason Su from Urban and Regional Planning, and Ralph Robinson, a graduate student in the Urban and Regional Planning Department and CommUniverCity project coordinator. The community planning project involves an assessment and visioning process for residents and businesses through a collaboration between San Jose State's Urban and Regional Planning Department, students and staff of the City of San Jose, where they engage and gather feedback from community members and stakeholders to generate a community assessment report for city staff and the community. So I'd like to turn it over to them.
Great. Thank you. My name is Jason Su. I'm an instructor with the Department of Urban and Regional Planning, joined with Rick, Imelda, Ralph, Elma, as well as Lauren, Richard, and Hazel. We're really excited to kind of talk about this project with you all. It is a lot of work with a lot of interesting challenges, but something that really we feel is beneficial, and by figuring out the additional challenges right now, we could feel it be even more impactful. Just for context, this class is a 6-unit class at the end of the 2-year master's program that we have full-time. And this class allows the opportunity for all the students to really implement everything that they learned in the class through lectures, through other experiences and internships, and apply it to an area where these services are requested. There's a lot of current and upcoming challenges for the corridor that need the support, and we are glad to be providing it. Should I just say next slide for, right, great, thank you. And so we kind of just talked about the area and the course of it. Our stakeholders include the community, the various initiatives with Aruba, Patrol Elm Rock, in partnership with District 5, and many other residents, businesses, and community-based organizations. Oh, and you can stay here, but the boundary is between the two freeways, and then at the north being McKee, 280, 680, and 101. And when we talk about the Elm Rock corridor, we're specifically talking about the corridor between King and 680. Great, yeah. And so what we move forward with is asset-based community planning, ABCD. And the illustration comes off as we're trying to do a more positive perspective on planning, not to look at communities based off what they need, but based off what they have. I do want to iterate that this is a lot more than just being positive in it. A lot of the issues that various communities face are similar, whether it's poverty, whether it's poor public health, whether it's a slew of other issues, but the assets that they have are different. And if we apply solutions just based off the problems, we're not best leveraging the assets that are there, nor are the resources committed to solving that. And the intention behind asset-based community planning is both to leverage the strengths of the community, but also is a wise planning process to best leverage the public resources that we have to maximize the impact. Next. So this whole project has been going on for over a year, and it's very strange to see May 2019 as a year ago. It's and where we're at right now. We started with convening various nonprofit organizations, business groups, and residents to do a community outreach kickoff in May. And we had over 150 people come talk about the assets, challenges, and vision that they want for the Elm Rock corridor. Next. And so fall 2019 is the fall semester class. This layout right here is the traditional structure of our 295 studio course, where we start with an assessment of the neighborhood through walking tours, guest lectures, examination of the regulatory context, demographic information. Phase 2 is when we embark on the community outreach portion. And this part includes things like interviews as well as a open house. Last year it was done in November. And we had over 80 people attend. We had a large map at the middle, posters up on the walls. We were engaging residents, asking them for feedback, whether they wanted to get feedback in person, through word, through a sticker, through a comment. It allowed various options to provide feedback based off the interest and comfort level for residents on how they wanted to engage. We had some food so that they could, they wouldn't have to worry. We had some youth activities that we were able to also translate into feedback. I think it was like draw your street or draw your city. And we got some really fun images from that. Next. Okay. The spring semester started off the same format, and we were able to complete phase 1 as was intended with the walking tour and the regulatory research. At the pivot between phase 1 and phase 2, when we were going to do engagement, is when shelter in place happened. And I do want to credit the students for the flexibility and the passion that they were able to continue on. Through the pivot, we had a target of 100 surveys and 40 interviews, and they really worked very, very hard and very, very well to get a number of them done by the end of the semester, navigating whatever they're going on through other classes, through their personal life, and as well as the new technology challenges that everyone's kind of facing together. I just want to kind of credit all the students here on their good work. And then we presented it on May, the feedback from the students. We're still working on the rest of the report this summer, as well as completing the engagement. Next. Okay, actually, you go to the next one. Yeah. Yeah, so there are lots of challenges. A lot of them are just kind of perpetual challenges to doing planning work. It has always been difficult to engage residents in the planning process. The planning process itself is just a very long process, and it is inherently built in a way where there's a lot of opportunity for disappointment. You do a vision, and 6 months, 10 months, like 2 years later, that could all be different. It is still important to kind of constantly engage with the residents to kind of ensure that the priorities that they have remain updated so that those priorities can be advocated by other partners. But it does take a long time, and it does take a lot of work to constantly refresh it. There's always a challenge of ensuring there's diverse representation. The transition to distance interviewing and surveying does have inherent challenges on who is being asked for feedback based off their ability to access technology. And I think especially with this semester, it was just so new for everyone that we were all trying to figure it out together. But again, the students did a fantastic job on pivoting. And with that, I believe I'm transitioning to Ralph for the next one.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jason. So just to give an overview as far as some of our kind of final milestones here. So we have been working on this project for over a year, and between last May, the fall open house, and then continuing with our spring digital engagement, we've had over 240 community participants so far. A few stats from that open house: we had 97% satisfaction with that, and 91% reporting an increased knowledge of development issues in Alum Rock. And then again, continuing into the spring, so far we have interviewed 36 community members. Those have been a mix of one-on-one interviews as well as focus groups of around 6 to 8 people. So most people, we were targeting about 70% people learned something new. We're at about 85% right now, so that's great. And then similarly with our community amenity survey, so we have 68 respondents so far. We're aiming for at least 100, so that process is continuing into the summer as well. And so far, we have some consensus on people a survey adequately capturing people's preferences. We're also, of course, collecting the other things people are putting in there that we might be missing, so we can also include those in the final report. Right. So from a mix of the May event, the fall open house, and then again our spring digital engagement, we put together this pyramid of community priorities. So we're actually going to start at the bottom here with the base. So understanding that we can make all these, or we can recommend all these other improvements or amenities for the community, but if we don't have basically a system in place that's going to allow current residents and current businesses to stay in place, in an affordable manner, then all these other things are kind of a moot point. So that's the first thing we want to build off of, and then going from there, top priorities being street and park safety, walk and bikeability, and then recreation and connectedness. And I believe the students are going to speak a little more to these issues as well when they jump on here. And then thinking about the community impact as well. So here we just have a mix of quotes pulled from our open house as well as from our digital engagement. And again, it was just really heartening to see people point out things, people pointing out that, oh, even if we weren't necessarily telling them information, just giving them that outlet where they could continue to think about these issues and express them, and have an engaged group of students that again was really eager to study these issues and learn about them and then communicate them a level up in a way that's going to be meaningful, and again we aim to be impactful. So again, we're just really appreciative to all the community members who have participated so far, and we're going to hear from one a little later with Elma, but first we're going to have Richard Kos, the other professor from the class. He's going to give us some overview about these students who participated in the class.
Okay, thank you, Ralph, and good morning, everybody. Special thanks to all of the steering committee members for supporting the work of our students year after year after year. I really appreciate it. I have the great pleasure of working with awesome urban planning graduate students. These are the 34 students that undertook the work you just heard about. The students on the left side were the fall 2019 students, and the ones on the right are from the spring 2020 class. And for many of these students, the work that they pursued in the Alum Rock community was their first direct experience with community engagement. And they really learned a great deal from this experience. Okay, next slide, please. We understand that you on the steering committee really are interested in learning about the impact of these projects on the students. So we just have some basic statistics here. And the photo is an exercise that we undertake with the students early in the semester that engages them in learning about the community as rapidly as possible. We call this an urban montage. And the students prepare these elaborate posters that you can see on the table that are a collection of their findings from walking the neighborhood, talking with residents, talking with business owners, conducting demographic analysis, and they put all these findings together, and it opens up the door for a very rich conversation before we start the community engagement process. Next slide, please. We wanted to share with you, again, thinking about impact on the students. Here are some quotations from 3 of our recent students. And I'll be quiet just for a moment to give you a second to read these.
Rick, you might want to read it because some of them are just joining by phone.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I'll read one of them. One of the students told us that being able to relate and understand the implications of planning policy decisions firsthand and from the community has provided me with a perspective that I will take with me in future endeavors. And I'm happy to say we hear this routinely, semester after semester, from our urban planning students, that by engaging with local San Jose communities, it directly enhances their career, and it also improves their prospects for career development. So we love to see that. Next slide, please. Okay, at this point, I'd like to introduce the co-chair of the Alum Rock Urban Village Advocates, Elma Arredondo, and she'd like to share a few words. So Elma, whenever you're ready, take it away, please.
Oh, good. Thank you very much for inviting me. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm co-chair of the Alum Rock Urban Village Advocates, And this is a group that was really formed as a result of the community meetings that CommUniverCity was having at the Mexican Heritage Plaza. So we've continued these meetings for about a year and a half now. And our main objective is to be involved in the development that's occurring in the Alum Rock corridor. We've had an ability to get together and join and design, develop, and advertise what our objectives are. And it's all related to having an authentic community input to the plans that are happening in Alum Rock. And we're looking forward to having input from the work that the students have been doing to complete an Alum Rock Urban Village plan. Because without that plan, we can't really, we can't really direct the developers to look at what they should be doing at the corridor. We have developed some goals, and that's to have that authentic community input. And it's also regarding affordability and anti-displacement, that we want to ensure that 50% of all new housing is affordable to existing existing households within our zip code. We also have a local preference, an anti-displacement statement. We have preservation of existing businesses. We want nonprofit services to be included in the corridor. We want public spaces, meaning parks and places to gather. We want an attention to traffic in the area and an attention to parking, which is a problem in our area. Along with that, we've been able to develop a project scoring criteria for when we meet with developers. We're able to assess how their project affects our corridor. And we look at whether they're doing anything to prevent the displacement of our existing neighborhoods, whether they're really involved in community engagement, whether they're doing anything to revitalize existing businesses, and whether their development is culturally inspired. Because we want to make sure that it fits in with our community. And we're interested also in healthy, sustainable development. We want them to also to look at how their development affects the parking and whether they're using public transportation. So those are the kind of things that we as an organization are involved in the community, and this partnership with the CommUniverCity and the urban planning students is very critical to our work. Thank you.
Great, Elma, thank you so much. Really appreciate those comments. Let's go to the next slide, please. I mentioned earlier that the work of the graduate urban planning students is very personally rewarding to me, and for them, as you heard before, it provides the students with amazing career growth opportunities. I'd like to introduce you to 3 of the students that worked on this project over the last few months. Hazel Choi, Richard Davis, and Lauren Anderson. By the way, Richard just earned his master's degree a few weeks ago, and Lauren and Hazel are steadily progressing towards earning their degree in the near future. So with that, let me turn it over to the students for some brief remarks.
Hello, we are the Spring 2020 students, and we want to share what we have learned and felt during this project. My name is Hazel, and I was in charge of the writing part about community assets and priorities in the study area. This project was a great opportunity to learn how asset-based community development is important to planners, because in my previous planning experience, I used it to focus on community's needs or problems, and that way could not encourage active community engagement. While I took this class, I realized I need to understand and try to discover what they already have, like assets, culture, and history, which focus on encouraging their pride and self-esteem. I also learned how it is significant to establish a clear community's priorities, which community members agree with in order to envision its improvements. So this project This project expanded my academic and professional perspectives and taught me what I have to focus on as a planner. Thank you. Now I will hand over to Lauren.
Thanks, Hazel. I definitely agree. This was my first experience conducting a thorough community assessment, and it's definitely an experience I will not forget. I also found the field experience to be extremely valuable, both for my academic experience and for my professional development. As a class, we had the opportunity to take a walking tour guided by Somos Mayfair in the D5 office, and we also participated in informal walking tours as teams. During the process, we had conversations with residents at businesses in the neighborhood. Being out in the field and seeing, experiencing and listening to the community was the highlight of the project for me. Through this experience, I learned so much about the neighborhood and grew to really appreciate and want to protect its strong sense of identity, culture, and community. This lesson about the importance of seeing and learning from the community is one that I will carry with me throughout my planning career. With that, I'll hand it off to Richard.
Hi. So I was also on the writing team, like Lauren and Hazel. So as part of this community engagement, this was also my first time talking with neighbors, real people, as part of a community engagement process. As a researcher professionally, I've done expert interviews, which are very transactional. But in talking, so I just sat in on an interview, took notes with two community members. One is a parent of two young children, the other is an older member of Aruba. And just to underscore what one of the other student comments on that slide said, that people already know they have a deep feeling about their neighborhood and what they want to see in the future. And so these conversations were emotional. We tried in the course of this project to capture to the best of our ability their voices, because when you open up these dialogues in a community engagement process, there's a sense of trust that's created, and we don't want to lose that. So in the project itself, and actually writing the report, with that pyramid that you saw, that graphic is just a small part of kind of a summary figure of a whole chapter, part of a larger report that tries to preserve these voices. And in trying to reach, the document tries to reach many audiences. And so we tried to make this document and writing it as accessible as possible. So we hope that the community can go back to this document, look at it, and see their desires for the community reflected. Thank you.
Great, so thank you, Hazel, Richard, and Lauren. I'm sure all of you can see why I love my job. I get to work with amazing students such as these. So to conclude, the report that we've been mentioning will be ready in August or by early September at the very latest, and we'll make sure that all of the committee members receive a copy for review. And I'm also happy to announce that the students' work in the past has won a number of awards from the American Planning Association, which is our kind of our umbrella organization. So the students are committed to lifting up communities, listening to community residents, and trying to make a positive difference in San Jose. So special thanks again to all of the committee members for supporting our work at San Jose State. I'm not sure if we have time for questions, but we're all here if there are any.
Could you do a round of applause for the faculty members and presenters, and then also we could take maybe one or two quick questions. Thank you. Yay. We clap. Yay. I think everyone did such an amazing job this semester. So thank you, Rick, Ralph, urban planning presenters. You did an incredible job. We're so proud of you.
Well, thank you, Catherine. And if there's any questions we don't have time for, feel free to, or that come up later, feel free to put them in the chat and we can email folks back with their response.
And we can also invite the steering committee to a public meeting once the report is complete this summer. I think it's going to be in August, right?
Yes, somewhere around that time.
Okay. Any questions? So put them in the chat if you have questions, and then maybe, Deanna, we can go on to the next agenda item.
Yeah, that's great. I love the idea of putting any questions you have into the chat feature, and then folks can follow up later.